After some time, in an office building, media says it's been 20 years since she became the head of the academy, and she has never heard anything like that before. In a flashback, our boy rejects the offer to promote to star class, shocking both Siegfried and Media. Confused, Media asks Kang if he understands what it means to be in star class, wondering if she heard him correctly. She explains that while the elders were furious, this decision was determined directly by the subspace itself. Kang pauses for a moment before replying that despite everything, he still doesn't like it, further shocking both of them. Returning to the present, Media asks Siegfried if he is upset that Kang took the top spot instead of his granddaughter. Siegfried, having seen the footage himself, replies that there is nothing more foolish than questioning the judgment of the subspace. He acknowledges that Kang's skills were outstanding and showed a level of sword mastery beyond expectations. When Siegfried unlocked Kang's blocked meridians, he felt something that shouldn't be there, yet somehow it was. While he is deep in thought, Media suddenly starts simping for our boy, saying that if she were 10 years younger, but then she quickly adds that she could still do it now. She then asks Siegfried for his opinion, to which he responds, "Do you know what students call a girl like you these days?" Curious, Media asks him to continue, and Siegfried drops the B word, instantly pissing her off. Later on, our boy heads to his class, thinking that this is the best compromise he could have made. Media promoted him to a class higher than Tiger class, but told him to keep it a secret. He wonders if he could have just laid low instead of getting caught up in some power struggle. As he enters the class, all the students glance at him, but the moment they see Kang's green name tag, they immediately lose interest and go back to chatting. Kang is surprised that he was completely ignored, which means the headmaster managed to keep everything under wraps. He thinks this might actually be a good thing. At that moment, a red-haired girl approaches Kang and thanks him for saving her back then, leaving Kang speechless. She then reminds him about the subspace incident. Hearing this, Kang wonders why she is using formal language when they are the same age. Our boy tells her there's no need to thank him since anyone would have done the same in that situation. However, the red-haired girl replies, "That's not true." In his mind, Kang thinks that it seemed like he saved her, but in reality, he was just trying to survive. He then points out that they haven't introduced themselves yet, so he goes first. The red-haired girl then introduces herself as Khloe. Our boy responds, "Nice to meet you, Khloe." Kang hadn't expected them to be in the same class. Internally, he wonders who Khloe is, as he had played through most of the game but doesn't recognize this character. As far as he knows, the later stages of the main story focus on the battle with the demon tribe, so it's unexpected to see a new character appearing at this time. Finally, Kang realizes that Khloe, like him, might just be a background character. Kang asks Khloe if she can keep what happened during the exam a secret, and Khloe replies, "Of course." Just as Khloe was about to say something else, the teacher enters the classroom. Oh, it's the same guy who inspected our boy's weapon. He introduces himself as the instructor of the wolf class and congratulates the students on their admission, encouraging them to be proud of this achievement. Since it's the first day, Instructor Lee announces that they will begin with some simple physical training. He instructs the students to change into their training clothes and gather at the training ground within 30 minutes. One of the students asks about the training course, which consists of a simple routine: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, followed by 10 laps around the training ground. I think bro follows Saitama's training, and the only thing missing is eating a banana. Our boy immediately thinks the instructor is training all the cadets into becoming bald-headed, cape-wearing heroes. Trying to escape this one-punch man training, he asks the instructor for a break, claiming he is feeling sick, which is a classic move that works in real life. I did it in my school days. However, the instructor shuts him down, reminding him that he is the star of the class and that the headmaster gave him permission to attend all classes. Our boy thinks, "Damn that old hag," and asks for permission to use the restroom to unload his load, but the instructor gaslights him, saying, "See you in the training ground." At the training ground, our boy feels exhausted from all the running. All the other students are ahead of him, and Kang feels like he is about to pass out. out. Khloe approaches him and asks if he's okay. Our boy weakly asks what lap they're on, and she replies, 5. Then she casually mentions that she's already on her 9th lap and cheers him on to do his best before suddenly dashing ahead like Usain Bolt, leaving our boy completely shit-faced. Later, in his dorm, our boy downs an entire crate of water and lies down in his bed, feeling hungry. Facing an unexpected problem, he goes to buy some food at the counter, only to find they accept only meal tickets. He decides to buy a ticket, but sees the prices. And I gotta say, what the hell are they cooking there for these kinds of prices? He finishes his last drop of water, curses the insane prices, and decides to sleep instead of worrying about his hunger. He calls himself an idiot for not accepting money from his parents earlier. Then, a blessing window pops up, showing his physical stats have increased to 12. He thinks it's not a waste of time, as he's now rocking that sleeper build with a lot more muscle. He wonders if the blessing of the sword god has cleared his blood vessels. At this rate, Kang thinks it's almost like an evolution. However, the blessing of the sword god still hasn't fully expanded, and if he keeps improving step by step, he might be able to handle a short sword soon. Looking at the Sashimi sword, our boy recalls being terrified of holding a sword during the entrance ceremony. Now, if he's not holding one, his hands itch, probably because of the blessing. He feels proud of himself. Suddenly, Kang hears a knock on his door. He asks who it is, and upon opening it, he's surprised to see Khloe standing there. She asks if she's disturbing his rest. Our boy replies that he was just lying down and asks what's up. Khloe explains that she hasn't seen him in the campus cafeteria all week and was worried he might not be feeling well. He tells her that he usually doesn't eat food made by others, though in his mind, he admits he's starving and would eat anything made by others. Khloe invites him to dinner, and without hesitation, he agrees. He's relieved that he doesn't need to starve or go dumpster diving. Later, in Khloe's dorm, she thanks him for cooking so quickly. She only boiled fish and never expected food to taste like this. Kang checks the fridge and finds it filled with fish. He asks Khloe if she really likes fish, to which she replies that she does, as she's from a seaside area. As he starts to cook, the only problem is the blessing of the sword god. Our boy asks Khloe if she has a longer knife. She pulls out a katana, which makes him use the blessing, and he finishes the dish in just 21 seconds. Khloe is impressed by Kang's skills, while our boy thinks to himself that it felt like a masterpiece. Khloe asks how he cooks so well, and Kang replies that he used to work part-time at a Japanese restaurant. This is the first time Khloe's heard of part-time jobs. She looks confused, and Kang asks if she doesn't know about part-time work. Khloe apologizes, but Kang tells her there's no need to. In his mind, he reflects on the disparity in their backgrounds. Anyway, Kang says he's glad she enjoyed the meal. Khloe then tells him that since he made the meal, she'll take care of the dishes. Kang thanks her and says he'll leave the dishes to her. He then goes to look at the moon, feeling full and satisfied. However, he notices that Khloe has gotten water all over her uniform. Observing her, he wonders if she's ever washed dishes. Then, a diary falls from Khloe's desk. Inside, he sees it's written that someone helped her during the class placement test, and she feels she must repay him. Kang thinks it's cute, but when he turns the next page, he sees the entire pages filled with "I love him." Our boy freezes, but before he can close the book, Khloe sees him holding it. We get a flashback of Khloe's past. Her family trains assassins from a young age, and she was trained to be a cold-blooded killer. She enrolled in the academy to stay out of sight and remain hidden, until she met Kang, who stood up for her. She remembers him using his sword skills to save her. During her childhood, she had secretly hidden a fairy tale about a princess trapped in a castle and a prince's love. Now, seeing Kang, she blushes, thinking this is love. And that's how an yandere is born. Back at the dorm, Khloe stares at Kang with a yandere look. Our boy thinks he's done for. He says the dinner was good and tries to leave, but Khloe asks if he saw what was written in the diary. Our boy says she really studies hard, and Khloe pulls out her katana, shocking him. He doesn't understand what's going on. Looking out the window, he realizes they're on the 4th floor, and if he jumps, he'll become a pancake. The only exit is behind Khloe, and he's trapped. Khloe starts to move closer with her yandere aura. Our boy notices she's unconscious, and seems to have a rough idea about such things. Seeing her dead pupils, he's sure Khloe is a yandere, with her fierce, energetic attitude being a split personality. Her yandere side is already overwhelming. He thinks opening the diary triggered this personality change, and considers it dangerous, as Khloe will probably chase him until he dies. With only 9 seconds left on his painlessness skill, he notices the sashimi knife, but realizes it's too far away. Khloe gets ready to strike, so he grabs a box cutter, activating the blessing of the sword god. He faces her head on and says her hair needs a trim, making a slash. After a while, Khloe wakes up in her bed with her hair trimmed, wondering where Kang went. She recalls that he was looking out the window while she was doing the dishes. She remembers sneaking a glance at him, and then realizes her katana is missing. Fortunately, she spots it beside her bed and feels a sense of relief. Khloe notes that she tends to lose consciousness when handling a katana. She starts feeling embarrassed, her face flushing red as she wonders if she did something strange while unconscious. Spotting the box cutter on the floor, she questions what it's doing there. Upon further reflection, Khloe notices that her hair is shorter and considers that the box cutter may have been used to cut it. Finally, she notices that Kang has tidied up, and when she sees her cut hair in the bin, she feels a bit yandere. She writes, "I love you," in her diary before she forgets. The scene shifts outside, where our boy spits out rainbow and feels glad he finished before the blessing ended. But he throws up everything he ate and feels hunger creep back. He thinks he got lucky with Khloe because if he'd been ambushed, he would have been dead. In the end, he only managed to cut her hair and escape, doing a quick cleanup afterward. He reflects on how, when he was thrown into this game, he had no ambitions. For someone like him, who's good with sashimi knife skills, there are only 2 other legendary blessings, and the protagonist gets an OP sword, while our boy can only use sashimi knives. Moreover, since entering the academy, his continuous encounters with unrealistic figures and situations have made him forget his goal. Kang thinks he has stopped for various reasons. Come to think of it, isn't there even a single ordinary person in this world? He has a vague understanding of the game. It's been just over a week since he entered the academy, and according to the story, the main character's blessing should be activating around now as they're finishing enrollment. This means the real story is about to start. Kang seems to know the general plot, but he hasn't seen the ending. Of course, knowing the official story up to the midpoint is an advantage. Whatever happens, Kang decides to follow the official route. If everything gets mixed up, it'll just waste whatever merits remain. If Kang's memory serves him right, the story darkens significantly from the second semester of the 3rd year. The birth of a hero and the demon race will unify their forces under demon lords and threaten the academy. The conflict between demons and humanity will eventually escalate into a world war. Following the typical fantasy plot, all the characters will die, and Kang gets pissed off, deciding to delete the game. With that thought in mind, what's even more chilling is that this terrible war is supposed to happen in this world, and Kang wonders if he will die too. But then he realizes there are still nearly 3 years left, so now he needs a more realistic goal than ever. Kang decides to get stronger, and if the mass-produced game narratives have a happy ending, the world will likely be saved by the protagonist. However, Kang needs power to protect himself. He can't live with the fate of potentially dying at any moment due to the war. Therefore, Kang should train himself to survive without drawing too much attention. If he stands out, there's a chance he'll be forced to fight the demon army, something he intends to avoid. Additionally, Kang needs to be cautious about using the blessing of painlessness, as the burden on his body is too great. Then, a status window opens up, showing that his performance is impressive, but it also contains a lot of new information. Physical rank, mental rank, weapon rank. The numbers appear to represent levels and ranks, but this detailed info is something Kang doesn't fully understand. As he clicks on it, a notification pops up. Access denied. Kang brushes it off, thinking it's not important right now. He realizes that he needs a new weapon, though. He can't rely solely on the blessing of painlessness for 30 seconds, indefinitely. He also needs to train with swords that don't meet the conditions for the sword god's blessing. Fortunately, next month, there will be a practical combat training session replacing the midterm exams, and the reward is a B-class weapon. If Kang can handle it, it will be enough for graduation. While thinking about that, Abel approaches from behind and tells Kang that it's her spot. Our boy is shocked to see her, but shifts aside. He can't believe he's seeing his waifu in real life and blanks out. Kang thinks that it's her spot, but aren't the benches public property? He considers that if he gets involved with the heroine, the main story will definitely become complicated. He then sees her in close-up and thinks, damn, she's pretty. Abel says the stars are beautiful tonight, but we all know our boy says something even more beautiful just now. She asks if his weapon is also a sword. Kang asks Abel how she knows that, and she replies that her grandfather told her. She also heard that sword masters have a different look in their eyes. Kang blushes, meeting her gaze, and Abel asks if he wants to try holding her sword. Kang replies that the sword doesn't feel heavy at all, but he's surprised to see Abel sulking. Kang thinks that Abel is difficult to get used to, and wonders if this is really the Abel he knows. Then Abel asks if Kang knows her. Kang wonders if Abel suspects him and responds, more or less. However, Abel shakes her head. I don't know you. In his mind, our boy questions what Abel's point is. She continues, saying, it's rather weird for you to know my name while I don't know yours. Kang asks if he really needs to introduce himself to someone he just met. Abel replies, one can never be too sure. You could be a spy for the Demon King, infiltrating the academy as a student for all I know. She also suggests there's no good reason for Kang to be out alone this late at night. Both of them exchange serious looks, and Kang thinks this is going nowhere. Our boy asks Abel why she's out here. Abel responds, isn't it obvious? I'm here to exercise and train. Kang tells her that he's been exercising too. Abel asks him what kind of exercise, and with a straight face, our boy replies, breathing. Abel thinks it's weird, but as Kang looks at her hands, he notices the marks of intense training. Seeing Kang's gaze, Abel quickly hides her hands, but our boy tells her that she's very diligent. Abel responds, of course I am, explaining that she needs to be perfect all the time to uphold her bloodline's reputation. She then admits that this is the first time she's ever lost, but instead of frustration, she felt relieved and wanted to know the person who defeated her. She wanted to find out who they were so she could crush them next time. Our boy is stunned to hear this and asks if she really has to go that far. Abel firmly replies, it's a matter of pride. She goes on to explain that she kept asking her grandfather for details, but he told her that the top student wasn't even in her class. To make matters worse, the top student had the nerve to skip the oath ceremony. After calming down, Abel reflects, I'm sharing all of this with someone I don't even know. Kang asks Abel why she's telling him all this. Abel simply responds, because you're weak. She further explains that the motto of her family is to be firm with the strong and merciful to the weak. Abel adds that all her classmates are exceptional at what they do, so she doesn't have any friends. Hearing this, Kang thinks this must be why the main character is so distant. Abel then tells Kang that she's going to turn in for the night. Hearing this, Kang says his goodbye. Abel sits quietly for a moment before asking, are you really not going to tell me your name? Our boy simply replies, no. The scene shifts to Kang's classroom, where he sits alone, reflecting on how his life at the academy is much calmer than he had anticipated. Khloe has already blended into the class, making friends with ease, while Kang is busy avoiding eye contact and trying not to run into her. Whenever their gazes meet, Khloe's new friends glare at him with icy looks, but our boy couldn't care less about them. He's not the only unique one in the Tiger class, though. Despite being in the same class, most students are reluctant to interact with each other, as if holding on to a sense of entitlement. Thinking about it, Kang notes that it's actually a good thing not to be in the upper class, especially since this is the season when the Star and Dragon classes start forming political factions. Even back when he played this game, those students always felt like clowns. Just the thought of being in that class now makes Kang dizzy. But at least he's eating well, and that's what matters. He wonders what he should eat today. We see that media gave Kang a card for daily use, a perk for being the top student. She also apologized for the delay, explaining that it's actually a faculty member's card. Eating 3 times a day, Kang felt pure bliss. Now, he's just living life as Kang, fulfilling his duties as a student faithfully without significantly impacting the main scenario. He resolves to spend the next 3 years like this. If he can manage that, he believes he can achieve the future he's imagined. The scene then shifts to the next classroom, where the teacher gives a history lesson about the hero who defeated the Demon King's right-hand man and emerged victorious. However, he injured his arm and could no longer participate in battle. The war had no clear victor, but fortunately, the humans and demons reached a truce, leading to the establishment of the academy to nurture future generations. The teacher continues, explaining that the first human-demon war led to the signing of the non-aggression treaty between the two parties, ushering in an era of peace that has lasted for the past 700 years. Hearing this, students begin chatting about whether there will be a war in their generation. Meanwhile, Kang thinks to himself that he's the only one aware that the first crack in this so-called peace is not far off. It's unnatural for everyone to be so accustomed to this serenity. As much as he'd like to warn media, he is uncertain of the future. Although she does not hide her desire to leave her position as dean as soon as possible, she was the first person in the story to sense the abnormality. She was also the first of the 7 heroes to step up and protect the students. While Kang didn't play much of the game, he did look it up and found that Media was the first hero to be taken down by the Demon King. He thinks that if only he didn't know that, then maybe things would feel normal. The teacher then informs the students that's all for today and reminds them to study hard for the exam in 2 weeks. As class ends, students rush outside together. Seeing them, Kang wonders what's happening, then realizes it must be that time. Today is the 5th of May. Kang steps outside, thinking that if his memory serves him correctly, today marks the enrollment of the world's main character, Leon, and with him, the 700 years of peace will soon end. Kang reflects on the protagonist, Leon, who is one of those overpowered main characters that gets all the girls, including the 3 main heroines. Even Leon's party members are impressive, and Kang knows that in 3 years, Leon, blessed by miracles, will be one of the first to be drafted. In reality, drafted is just a nicer way of putting it. Kang refuses to go through that again. By the way, even Valor was only able to seal the first Legion commander, which makes Kang wonder just how powerful the Demon King truly is. But he knows this isn't some insane story where the protagonist loses. Just then, Leon looks at Kang and smiles, surprising him. Kang reflects on the power of the blessing of miracles and assumes that Leon, as the protagonist, will be able to handle things on his own. Our boy notices that Leon has a trustworthy face and, without realizing it, finds himself convinced. The scene then shifts to the training hall, where Kang practices with a wooden sword. After a few swings, he realizes that deviating from the standard technique means the blessing doesn't manifest. He needs a certain level of skill in swordsmanship to make use of it. Just then, Khloe approaches him and asks if she made a mistake. Surprised, Kang wonders when she arrived. He tells her nothing happened, but Khloe presses, "Really?" Our boy keeps his answer vague to avoid another yandere episode, and Khloe feels relieved. Kang, however, wonders about Khloe's true identity. She had been able to wield a sword even while unconscious, a blade filled with sorrow, yet still imbued with killing intent. It made her all the more dangerous. Khloe then asks Kang if she can invite him to dinner that night, wanting to repay him. Of course, she's not as skilled in cooking as he is, and as Kang thinks about dinner, he gets PTSD from what happened last time. However, seeing Khloe's hopeful puppy dog face, he hesitates. It feels awkward to refuse, but if he accepts, he might get into trouble again. Then, he comes up with an idea. Instead of dinner, he asks Khloe for a favor. He wants her to teach him swordsmanship. Hearing this, Khloe is happy and eagerly asks what he needs. A few moments later, Kang, holding a wooden sword, thinks that he needed a swordsmanship teacher anyway, and Khloe is frighteningly strong. He wonders if this is a good excuse, considering that since that day he makes sure to watch How to Survive a Yandere before bed. Inside the training hall, Khloe asks when Kang arrived, mentioning that she had been waiting for him over there. He replies that he just got here and asks about her. Khloe says she also just arrived. Suspicious, Kang asks for the time, and Khloe tells him it's around 6:30. He reminds her that they agreed to meet at 8, and Khloe simply smiles. As Kang looks at her outfit, Khloe asks if something's wrong, but in his mind, he notes how ripped she is when not in uniform. No wonder she's so strong. Kang hands Khloe a wooden sword, and as she takes it, she asks why they aren't using real swords. Kang says they should use wooden ones to avoid injuries. Khloe smiles and calls him kind. As she swings the wooden sword, Kang is stunned to see her aura manifesting even through the wooden weapon. He wonders just how strong Khloe's aura is. Gripping his wooden sword, he decides to be careful. Suddenly, a status window opens, and Kang confirms whether he can use the wooden sword without activating the blessing. He sees that the sword's specifications are fine and his physical growth is steady, but he wonders if the blessing normally has additional effects like this. He doesn't recall it working this way before. Observing Kang standing still, Khloe asks if something is wrong. Kang apologizes and reminds her that today is his first time practicing swordsmanship. so she should go easy on him. Khloe agrees, and Kang gets ready, signaling the start of their sparring session. As they face each other, Kang reflects on his practical approach. In his past life, he believed that seeing is believing. To become a master in any field, hard work alone isn't enough. His quick adaptation to the academy is also a product of all the knowledge he has absorbed. Khloe gathers her aura and charges at Kang with full speed. He barely dodges, surprised at how fast she is. He told her to take it easy, but she seems to be in a league of her own. She strikes again, and Kang blocks it, but her strength is incredible, barely managing to hold his ground. He tries to counterattack, but Khloe jumps into the air and prepares to strike again. Her speed increases even more. Kang braces himself and takes the hit head-on, but Khloe doesn't stop. She relentlessly strikes from different angles, pushing Kang back. Her strikes are extraordinarily heavy, and if this keeps up, he might get seriously injured. As Kang reaches his limit, he struggles to find an opportunity to counterattack, but then his wooden sword breaks in half. Seeing this, Khloe apologizes, saying she meant to go easy but ended up breaking his weapon. At that moment, Kang's broken sword meets the conditions for the blessing of the sword god, and the blessing activates. Our boy loses control. His expression twists into something terrifying. He looks like a serial killer. Khloe backs off, unable to understand what is happening. She asks Kang if he is okay, but he doesn't respond. His consciousness fades. In his mind, he finds himself back in his old kitchen. A fish lies on the cutting board, and he contemplates which knife to use. But the system interrupts him, saying he can't choose. Instead, it tells him to just do what you do best, and presents his sashimi knife. The system asks how he feels, and Kang replies, "It feels perfect." The system reassures him, "Just leave everything to me." Back in reality, the system activates heat. Khloe asks if Kang is okay, but he slowly walks toward her, and then suddenly charges with full force. Stunned, Khloe barely manages to block his strike, but he is now stronger than before. The force of his attack pushes her back, slamming her into the wall. Kang seems like a completely different person. He wastes no time and attacks again, exuding a murderous aura. Khloe, though confused, realizes she must stop the match. Khloe calls out his name in desperation. Inside Kang's mind, he's still in the kitchen, trying to slice the fish. But every time he tries, it dodges. Frustrated, he wonders why it's so noisy. Then, suddenly, he hears Khloe's voice calling his name. Back in reality, Kang's wooden sword is embedded in the wall, just inches away from Khloe. Snapping back to his senses, our boy takes a deep breath and says, "Let's stop here for today." Khloe, despite everything, simps for him, finding him sweet. She asks if he's okay. Kang thanks her for helping with his practice and decides to head in first. Later that night, Khloe walks to her dorm, reflecting on Kang. Ever since the class assignment test, she has noticed that his skills are not just raw strength, but something eerie. It's not just his abilities, but his instincts. Even though the blessing manifested unconsciously, Khloe realizes she is no match for Kang, especially with a half-training sword. She always knew he was strong, but she never expected this. At that moment, a masked figure appears. It's her brother, Nox. He tells Khloe that she seems to be enjoying herself. Khloe's expression darkens. She asks him why he is here. Nox coldly questions her, asking if this is what she has been doing at the academy, mingling with lowly people. Khloe tells him not to refer to Kang that way. Nox scoffs, acknowledging Kang's name before warning that if she continues associating with him, the Auditor family will eliminate him. But Khloe walks past Nox, confidently stating, even if the entire Auditor family comes for him, they won't be able to handle Kang. The scene then shifts to our boy, who reflects that he needs to clarify something. The power he has been granted is not some divine blessing or favor. Rather, it seems more like a curse. To avoid relying on the blessing of the sword god, our boy sets out to find new equipment. But that power seems to mock his efforts, following him like a shadow, waiting to take control. While Kang feels no pain, he experiences a strange, debilitating sensation that seems to go on endlessly. That curse manipulates him like a marionette, bound by invisible threads. Kang surrenders completely to the voice that whispers sweet, twisted words to him. Destroy more. Khloe's scream, filled with desperation, calls out the name that our boy has come to recognize as his own. In that cry, the fragments of his world are brought back together. Our boy throws away the training sword that had clung to him like his own skin, realizing that if he doesn't detach from it now, he will lose himself forever, until Khloe pulls him back into reality. Our boy feels a mix of irritation and gratitude. The sword god's blessing isn't something he can control. It's a curse disguised as power. Kang is just an outsider cast into this world. He didn't wish for much, just to live a normal life. He believed he could handle a few incidents as they came, but now he realizes there's something within his body, something trying to consume his reason. This was never a blessing. Rather, it was a curse solely intended to devour Kang, the art of the reverse heavens.